So this is a great view of, I guess, the real old town that's being slowly, I say slowly, probably pretty rapidly, divided, sliced up. People have been, I guess, evicted from their homes for the most part, and it's all sectioned out. Like, I actually walked 3 hours from where I was staying, and you have all these new development blocks, and the original areas like this are clearly cordoned off, as you can see here. Some of these buildings are obviously very, 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 very old indeed, and they're all been knocked down, all of them, and they'll be replaced with what you can see in the distance there, the high-rise tenement blocks. You can see obviously there's no interest in preserving these buildings, and it's not something that I'm not constantly slagging off the Chinese. Quite the contrary. It's just the reality of life. You have a domineering cultural group, and really it's just not a democratic process in any society. When you have a multitude of groups, the majority decide. Obviously there's things within that perhaps aren't to the taste of Europeans or so-called Westerners, but then there's also a practicality. Instead of spending, as is often the case, and most likely for kind of corrupt reasons, instead of spending 20-30 years renovating the corner of the fucking, I don't know, Notre Dame, some sepulchre, some church, some ritual site, some historical site. Often these things are tied up in scaffolding for generations, and it's just kind of ridiculous. You have to employ an element of efficiency if you want to create a society. And my understanding is, with respect to Kashgar, this is Kucha, not Kashgar, but with respect to Kashgar, the same thing obviously happened on a grand scale. The entire old town was destroyed, to allow, at least the reason given was to allow for water pipes and kind of sewage lines to be built beneath the city. So there is that element of, okay, if you don't provide these things, people complain, things become unhygienic. It's more cost effective long term to do these things. And of course there's obviously the political angle as well of trying to create a normative way of living for all Chinese, irrespective of their ethnic bounds. But yeah, this is what it is. I'm just showing you this is what is happening, and this is all the old town here. There's really not much left in many places in China, at least in the major tourist cities, which are famed, like Turpan, Kashgar, and Yarkand, and Kucha, if I'm pronouncing that correctly where I am. It's all turning into that monstrosity, and honestly it's so unbelievably ugly, really devoid of personality. There's also something else I wanted to say in China. I might as well just turn this into a little vlog. Now we're recording, just a quick one, sub 5 minutes. It's always foggy, and honestly I don't really put this down to pollution, and people are like, well, what do you put it down to then? And yes, it's going to sound conspiratorial. Something is being sprayed in the air here, and it's not just Xinjiang. I've seen it throughout China, both on this trip and when I first came here 12 years ago. And in terms of the traffic, there's nil. It's really, there's no congestion at all. Most of the vehicles are electric, and the ones that aren't are new. So in terms of fuel efficiency, everything's good in that respect. There's really no pollutants in the vehicle sphere. And people say, well, there's big factories that are polluting. Yeah, for sure there are factories, but there's fucking factories all over the world, and I've traveled extensively for 10 years now, and I've seen more visibly polluted places, yet the sky can always be seen. Here in China, you never see the sky. It's this constant mist, and even when it's blue, I've had blue skies in Turpan and Kunming and Xi'an, it's just not like the crystal blue that you'd see in Europe. It's this weird, again, like there's this mist and fog, and you can say, okay, well, these are big cities, but I've been to cities just as big, again, in countries where there's more contaminants being flushed up into the sky, like India. I think top 150 cities in the world are from India, for the most polluted cities, and yet you still see the sky. So I really can't put my fingers on why the sky is just so drab. It's and for me it means that something else is going on. I really don't put it down to factories. You know, I've been in small towns, I've been on trains through the abyss where no one lives, throughout Xinjiang, and the sky's the same everywhere. And you could say maybe it's a seasonal thing. Obviously it's low season, you know, when it brightens up, perhaps it's to do with all kinds of scientific factors that I'm not comprehending, but I just have my suspicions. It's just very, very strange, you know, very, very strange for such a large landmass, you know, travelling thousands of kilometres from one side of China to the next, and again, wherever you are, I'm not seeing the sky. But that's beside the point, I guess, now. So I'll leave this is, I guess, the most recent vlog, and it's going to be a while until I upload. I try and do it methodically, the uploads, but it's it eats away at my data. I think I've used probably about 120 gigs already in 20 days. The Wi-Fi doesn't work, as I've specified earlier, so I'll try and upload this at some point. It might be a few weeks late, but there we go. But if you do come to Kucha, definitely come to this mosque. It's absolutely fantastic inside, really.